What's happening with you guys? Welcome to another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. It is your man, Terry. This is episode 3 of the Cancer Chronicles. Tonight, what I want to do is to talk to you guys just a little bit. Again, this is about my transparency and my journey with cancer. Those of you that are watching and listening and don't know, but this is my journey, and this is part, or will be part of my healing process to get to the other side of the diagnosis. So, for those of you who are watching or listening and don't know what you stumbled upon, again, my name is Terry. I am the founder of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast, and I've been podcasting and live streaming and things since 2016. And I've done this thing, a lot. And I've told my story. I've run my mouth. I've gone through and told people about my pitfalls and the bad choices and the bad mistakes that I've made. If you want to relive those are up on being just about everywhere you listen to podcasts, your Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast. I think it's still around, and you can still listen to those old episodes and you can catch up. But just to recap for those who are first time listeners, I was diagnosed with stage 3 pancreatic cancer on December 24th, Christmas Eve. You guys are keeping up on your calendar, which was a very trying time. Was going through some things at work. I was sick for a long time, kind of ignoring. If you caught episode 2, one of the clips that I said in that was, don't ignore your body. If something is going on with your body, please go get that checked out. Do not ignore it. Do not try to play it or sleep it off, as they say. Don't do that. Go and get yourself checked out. I did mention that in episode 2. So if you want to check that out, you want to go and check out episode 2. But in this one, in episode 3, I want to, again, I think I did a video earlier today on my Facebook and TikTok and all that, and just thanking people for coming to my aid and being supportive and donating. They started GoFundMe that is down at the bottom of the screen here. You want to donate to that. I'm not sure that's a clickable link. You probably have to copy and paste it and put into your browser and all that. But I want to thank everyone who has donated and who has been a part of this and helping me out this nature. So what I'm going to get into tonight, though, is going to be a little different. I'm going to talk about a little bit about my process of going through chemo and what's going on with me. Again, it's just to be transparent and let people know what's really going on. Because one thing that I realized in the social media, especially when you're podcasting and live streaming, is that people look for transparency. People look for the truth in people. If people can spot the nonsense in you when you're telling a story, you will never be credible, right? So I always try to be transparent. And I always tell people, not perfect. I made some mistakes. I made some bad choices and this and that. I will always admit that, and I will always stand on that. But what I'm coming to use with this is some real stuff for me. So when I first got diagnosed back in December, when I tell you it was a whirlwind, I was in the hospital for about a week, the week of Christmas. And I think I got out on the 30th, which is a Sunday, right before New Year's Eve. And it was a whirlwind. I mean, I was in there. Blood sugar was 600. Excuse me. I'm surprised I didn't go into some kind of diabetic coma or whatever. Excuse me. Thank God that I didn't, because, it was crazy. And my bilirubin, if you guys are any health folks out there that know what bilirubin is, that's your number with your liver output or what have you. And my number was really, really high. And that's how they figured out it was cancer, because my bilirubin number was high. Did a CT scan the day I went into the hospital. Actually, how that started, I went into work that day and I was sick and I just didn't want to be there. I was sweating, see the employee health nurse. She told me I was, yellow. Go to the ER. Those of you that have caught the first 2 episodes already know the story, but this is just a recap for the first time listeners. And so I went to the ER, and it was just again, I was sick back in 24, and I thought, hey, it's just my diabetes acting up and this and that. And so I kind of downplayed it. Went to ER. They did a CT scan on me. Said, "Hey, you got a mass on your pancreas. We're going to transfer you, so we don't have an oncologist here." And it goes from there. So it was really crazy because everybody's, I got this whole surgical team. I got this whole oncology team who's coming in and seeing me because like I said, my bilirubin number was extremely high, and I had some folks to come to my aid, at that point, and they come up and see me and stuff, and it was really scary. I have a those of you guys that know me, I have a 7-year-old son, Terry Jr., who is the light of my life, Lord knows, and with his autism, he knows that there's something wrong with Dad, and he came to the room, and he hugged me and this and that, and it was just a very heartwarming moment. In that moment, though, I was scared out of my mind because I'm like, okay, this may be the last time I get to see my son. Or when you hear words like cancer and stage 3 or whatever, those words tend to put fear in the hearts of people because every cancer is a death sentence. But here's the thing that I realized is that we were born with a death sentence. But we were born to die. We're going to leave here one way or the other, right? And that's the realization that I had to come to eventually. But it was scary. It was scary that because with him and the emotional ties that I have with him, it's real. It's real stuff. It's real stuff, and it's very emotional. I try to talk about it because it makes me emotional. So they go and they're talking about, automatically, they're talking about, putting in a port and doing chemo and things of this nature. And I'm like, whoa, 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 everything's too fast. I'll admit this. It took me it took me, and I think I still struggle today, as far as with the diagnosis. But, after going through 3 rounds of chemo, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty well in the knowledge of, I'm a cancer patient, right? But it took me a while to get there. So I go into surgery. My first thing was I had to get a stent put into my pancreas because my urine and things wasn't traveling like it's supposed to, this and that. So now my first surgery was a stent placement into my pancreas, but that way so my bodily fluids can flow. My liver, my pancreas, and all that. That's my first operation. My second operation was a chemo port, which you guys, those of you who are listening can't see it, but the ones that are watching can see it. You can see the scar right here in my upper jugular here, and it's one right here in the middle of and the port is definitely right here in the middle of my chest. And the port is for when I go in to do blood work. They just stick the needle in my port in my chest, and they draw blood that way versus trying to find a vessel in my arm, which is a lot easier. It hurts. I'm not gonna lie, it hurts, but it only hurts for a second or two. It's not really that big of a deal. But so the schedule that my oncologist has for me is that I'm going to do the normal 12 rounds. I'm on the most aggressive form of chemo, which is the Florinox, which is 3 medications that I take when I get infused. But we'll get into that in a second. But I'm on the most aggressive form of chemotherapy. So hopefully they can attack it, they can shrink it, and I can have Whipple surgery here down the road. So my first round of chemo was nerve wracking because I was so scared before, right? So I go to the first round and I didn't really have any effects. Let me get back. I missed a part. Let me get back. My schedule is 12 rounds of Florinox, right? After the first 6 rounds, they're going to go back in. They're going to do another CT scan or either probably a PET scan to see if the chemo is taking any effect, if it's doing anything for the mass that's on my pancreas. If it is, then what they'll do is I'll do the other 6, and then they'll schedule me for my surgery, and we'll go from there, right? If after 6 rounds of chemo, or the most aggressive form of chemo, after 6 rounds, I'm faced with this, and after 6 rounds, and they rescan, and it doesn't do anything, if the cancer hasn't spread or whatever, I'm faced with a decision at that point. Because if 6 rounds of the most aggressive form of chemo does not shrink this tumor, I'm faced with it. I'm faced with either stopping and it's just living out the rest of my life, or I can continue on and do what they call management chemo, and it just keeps the tumor from shrinking, which is something that I'm willing to do because if we just if it's 3 days of chemo, it doesn't change really my quality of life. I got a little bit of neuropathy, and those of you that don't know what neuropathy is, that is when you get the tingles in your fingertips and in your toes, and you have a sensitivity to cold, whether you touch it or whether you drink it. So that's kind of where I am. So after 3 rounds, I'm halfway to the first point of my chemo. Chemo for me, and it works like this for me. Just so you guys know, I mean, probably you guys don't care, but this is just for me. My chemo starts on Friday. I have my chemo on Fridays. I get infused on Friday. I go in early morning, blood draw, see the oncologist. They tell me whether or not my blood work is good enough to have my chemo that day. And then I go into infusion. When I go into infusion, I sit in the chair. I mean, you can't beat it. It's a big old lazy boy with a TV remote, and you sit there and you take this medication. It's not so. My chemo day is pretty long because my blood work is at 9 a.m. I'm usually out of the hospital or out of the infusion chair and gone by 3. So it's a pretty long day. So I get the 2 drugs. Then after I get infused, I wear a fanny pack for 2 days. Those 2 days that I got this fanny pack on is the worst days because I'm nausea, fatigued. I'm just like, I don't want to do anything on those days that I have my fanny pack on because the fanny pack has the third drug in it. I'm thinking it's the Flornox, but I don't want to guess. But at any rate, I wear that fanny pack Friday, Saturday, and then I get de-access from my port on Sunday. But those 2 days are just rough. And then the week after I get the fanny pack off, it's rough because I'm coming down. It's like being high and then coming down from a high. But once I get past that week, then everything goes normal. The nausea goes away. The neuropathy goes away. But then by the time all that goes away, I'm right back into my chemo week, and then I'm getting infused again. So that's rough. That's rough. But I try to keep a positive outlook on it. I try to not get too down in the dumps because I have enough to deal with mental health wise on the other side of it. Another thing that I want to talk to you guys about tonight, and that's my chemo thing. And going along with that is when you it's very important that you have, like I said in my video earlier, it's very important to have a support and a tribe and people that you can trust and people who want to be there to help you. There are times where, you know, you have people and they're there in your life, and then next thing you know, they're gone. And you're like, okay, what happened? It was like we were here 1 minute and then the next minute it's over and done with. And it happens. And, you know, just for the record, I don't hold any ill will toward people. And it's just, it's just it's life. People have their own life struggles. But I would implore people that if you decide that you're going to drop what you're doing and to help someone else, make sure that you're there for them, and no other reason but to be supportive and to be there for them. Because, and like I posted on my Facebook a couple days ago, I refuse to be anybody's burden. If I feel like I'm a burden to you, if I feel like that I'm an inconvenience, I don't need it because I'm already fighting for my life, and fighting for my life doesn't consist of fighting for your support. I mean, that if that's what you want to do, that great. I'm not for it, right? I'm not here for it. I got enough things to deal with. I have a life on the other side of this diagnosis. I have a life on the other side of this healing. I don't have time. And again, it was just a realization that I had to come to. That realization was hard to come to because there are emotional ties to it, right? You just, you know, it's not like flipping a switch. If you feel a way, it just doesn't go away. right? It's just life. But it took me a while to get to the realization, and now I'm walking this thing out. I'm not gonna say on my own because there's a lot of people that support me. Social media people, as coworkers, things of this nature. There and my roommate, everybody. They are very very supportive. But at the same time, I understand that these folks have lives, and I'm not gonna be an inconvenience to them or a burden to them. You know what I'm saying? So it's very important. So if you're someone who wants to support and be that and stand on it. Let that be the hill you die on if you're going to be supportive. But if you're in it for anything other than that, don't do it. It's a waste and you hurt people. And I will say this and I will admit this to people that I've been hurt and it's not a good feeling. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, we have to press forward because at the end of the day, I have a life to live. Even though I'm faced with this major health issue, I have a life to live. So, you know, that's just what that is. So make sure you guys that, you know, love people because nothing is guaranteed in this life. It really isn't. We think it is. We want it to be. But at the end of the day, though, is that we all want to be loved and we all want to be cherished and we all want to be supported and all that good stuff. I gotta tell you, sometimes it's hard for people to do that because it just is. You know, it's hard for me to go and go onto GoFundMe and ask people that don't know me for money. But the realness of it is I ain't got it. You know what I'm saying? I ain't got it. And I still have obligations, and I pray that there are people and I see people's GoFundMe's all the time and they're into the thousands and all that good stuff. And I'm like, Lord, I need that in my life because I got stuff that I got to do. But I will say this in closing is that no matter what I'm faced with, no matter what anyone has done to me, no matter what I have done to them, I love people. I love people wholehearted. I made some bad choices, yes. I made bad mistakes, yes. But I am not. I refuse to let those bad choices, those bad decisions that I've ever made dictate how people treat me. I've always been a firm believer is that you teach people how to treat you. I've always been a firm believer in that. And you've heard, I've said it 1,000 times to people and on my live streams and podcasts and all that. You teach people how to treat you. And so sometimes it's just best to do it by your lonesome if you have to. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what it is. So I want to thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast, the Cancer Chronicles. This is episode 3. I'm your man, Terry. Again, you can follow me at Knucklehead Chronicles podcast.podbean.com. You can go to YouTube and check out the YouTube channel. I have a couple of reels and shorts on there. The video is definitely on YouTube. You can follow me on Facebook. You can donate to the GoFundMe. That's going to be in the link. You guys are awesome. If I have any new subscribers, new followers, thank you. Keep listening. Episode 4 will be in the next couple of days. Just hang tight. I love you guys, and we will see you on the flip.